Hello, my name is Tony. There are films we enjoy, idolise and adore that other people don't seem to. There are films we remember fondly whilst everyone else has forgotten them. There are films we know are somewhat shit, perhaps even objectively so. Yet despite knowing this, somehow they become the films we fall in love with. The ones that have meaning for us. The ones that resonate in a particular way with our personal subjective thoughts, memories and feelings. And sometimes it pleases us that others don't see what we see, get what we get, appreciate or experience the same frisson that speaks to us of our life and life experiences. The fact that they don't understand, that they deride and dismiss those films, alienate them, cast them aside like faceless dead orphans buried out of sight and out of mind in a forgotten workhouse cemetery, makes us feel rather good, because then we own those unwanted and unloved films, and they don't. They're ours, they belong to us. So what I think I'm trying to say is, fuck 'em, what do they know, dumb tasteless bastards? Fear is the key. Who remembers it and who likes it? Well, I remember it and I like it, and I know full well it's not exactly a cinematic masterpiece by any stretch. When I say not exactly, I'm being a little bit kind. But I don't care because it means something to me and I have very fond memories of it. One of the reasons it sticks in my mind is because when I saw it at the Market Hall Cinema for the first time in 1973, my delightful hometown was locked in a particularly bleak and bone-chilling November freeze. Black ice slicked the roads, thick glossy and evil. Wispy fragments of snow parachuted down, driven on a razor-toothed Siberian wind. A ruthless cold cut into you like a Stanley knife dipped in liquid nitrogen. On the run-up to Christmas, my father used to start stocking up on stuff, like mostly booze. The accumulation of spirits and bottled baby shams and cherry bees and ponies, the little drink with a big kick, along with cans of assorted beers, he would store in what we used to call the front room. The front room was so called because it was at the front of the house. It was the best room, or supposedly kept for best, which meant that you didn't go in there all that often, and it was preserved neatly and tidily, mostly for special occasions, not that there were many of those. At the rear of the house was the living room, also known as the sitting room, where we lived, after a fashion, and sat and watched a hulking, rented Rediffusion colour TV and pretended to be a happy family, a pretext pretty much blown by the permanently resentful and depressed expressions fixed on everyone's glum fucking face. Anyhow, on the night I went to see Fear is the Key, I took a peek in the front room at the growing stash of booze. Impulsively, I grabbed a can of Colt 45, exotically termed a malt liquor, don't you know, and slipped it into the pocket of my giant snorkel jacket before furtively departing through the front door, so called because it was at the front of the house, as opposed to the back door, which wasn't. Once seated comfortably in the sanctuary of the darkened cinema, or as comfortably as it was possible to get in the cheap seats, especially as it may have been a few degrees colder in the Market Hall than it was out, when the film started, I popped the ring pull and sipped at what was my first full can of beer ever, and kick-started the eventful journey into what was to become an alcohol-fueled future of sheer stupidity, chaos, and recurrent self-destructive shenanigans. Ah, happy days. You don't just remember the bad times, kids. Alright, enough with the confessional, all our yesterday's cobblers. Fear is the key. What is it? What's it about? What's it like? Let me tell you, pilgrims. Producer Elliot Kastner was partial to a bit of Alistair Stewart MacLean. He'd overseen the film versions of Where Eagles Dare and When Eight Bells Toll. MacLean, a prolific author of wartime and contemporary action thriller novels, published Fear is the Key in 1961, and even then it wasn't exactly what you'd call a trailblazer. In fact, it was a serviceable read, a potboiler, a pulpy little time waster. I don't know what Kastner saw in it exactly that made him want to develop a big screen version. Maybe the rights were going cheap, or part of a job lot, but he must have seen something because he made it into a movie. The film opens with one John Talbot, Barry Newman, sat in what looks like a remote public toilet in a field talking on a radio to a male and female in a plane. Another plane intercepts them, we hear machine gun fire, screaming, sound effects of a plane going down, and radio contact is severed. When next we see Talbot, he's somewhere in Hicksville, Louisiana, and picking a fight with some local cops in a bar. Following his arrest, he's in court up before the judge, where it is announced that he is wanted for bank robbery and the murder of a cop in Europe. Talbot makes an escape from the courthouse, blasting another Smokey in the process, and kidnaps Sarah, Susie Kendall, one of the few spectators present. Talbot commandeers a 1972 Ford Grand Torino in red, and a spectacular car chase ensues, which lasts for just over 20 minutes on screen. Talbot and Sarah are apprehended by a shady character called Jablonski, ex-cop turned bounty hunter, who informs Talbot that Sarah is the daughter of Ruthven, a millionaire oil baron. Jablonski returns Sarah to her father, looking for a financial reward, board and hands Talbot over also. Ruthven has some gangster types working for him, the leader of whom, Violent, seasoned screen heavy and go-to bad guy John Vernon, seems to know about Talbot's background and wants to use him to undertake some as yet unspecified task. He hires Jablonski to guard Talbot. The twisted reveal is that Talbot and Jablonski know each other and are working together to infiltrate Ruthven's home and organization. All events thus far have been staged. The arrest, the courtroom, the kidnapping, Sarah was invited to be present, the shooting of the cop, the gunfired blanks, just to get them on the inside. To cut a short story shorter, Talbot owned and ran a small private airline and is also a marine salvage expert. Violent has coerced Ruthven into using one of his oil rigs as a launch platform for a submersible to perform a deep-sea salvage operation. He now wants Talbot to pilot the sub as he's one of the few people who can. Holy coincidence. That's in no way suspicious. Wouldn't make anyone stop and think, hey, wait a minute. Violent has Jablonski murdered and buried in the grounds of Ruthven's house. Talbot discovers the body, breaks into Sarah's bedroom and confesses all, advising her now that Jablonski has been killed, both she and her father are in mortal danger from Violent. In the middle of a storm, the submersible is launched and piloted by Talbot, with Violent and one of his hoods, Royale. Guess who this is? On board. On the seabed, they discover the wreckage of a Douglas DC-3 aeroplane. Talbot reveals that he knows there is $80 million worth of uncut diamonds on board, apparently payment for arms by a Central American government. The plane was hired from a small private airline, the one owned by Talbot. It was shot down with Talbot's brother, wife and 3-year-old son on board. Talbot kills the submersible's power and turns off the oxygen supply. He tells Violent that he is happy to die beside his family and that the remaining oxygen will run out in 6 minutes. Under pressure, Violent confesses to having the plane shot down. Royale shoots Violent, then confesses to having murdered Jablonski. The conversations are heard over the mic by Talbot's law enforcement colleagues on the rig. Talbot switches the oxygen back on and heads to the surface. I finish my beer and with a pleasing little buzz on, walk back home through the Arctic cold, stinging sleet and howling wind, convinced I've seen a much better film than I have. Fear is the Key has some yawning plot problems and glaring structural flaws, undeniably so I'm afraid. The main flaw being the car chase set piece. Not the chase itself, it's quite brilliantly executed, filmed and presented. An exhilarating and at times nail-biting 20 minutes of action cinema from a time when real vehicles were driven before the camera by real people. Like the speedboat chase in Puppet on a Chain, it is the movie's big moment and main selling point. However, in Puppet on a Chain it was something of a climactic payoff, strategically positioned near the end of the film. In Fear is the Key, it's at the start. Talbot's arrest and courtroom escape to the end of the car chase is an adrenaline-pumping blast. Everything after that, though, is much lower key, pedestrian, borderline mediocre on times, and anticlimactic in comparison. You've just watched the best the film has to offer, now you have to sit back and contend with the rest. It's the movie equivalent of premature ejaculation. Anything afterwards is likely to disappoint. Never the same with a soft on. I mean, so I'm told. Like, how would I know? The plot doesn't stand up that well to closer scrutiny. If you're able to take it on face value and just go with it, that's fine. But the moment you start to raise questions, it begins to fall apart. The car chase is life-threateningly dangerous to driver Talbot, passenger Sarah, pursuing cops, and any hick bystanders who happen to be in the vicinity. It's doubtful any law agency would sanction this recklessness as part of an undercover operation. Jablonski explains being able to track Sarah and Talbot down so quickly because he'd parked beside them in a parking lot and recognized Sarah. The hypervigilant Talbot, a criminal on the run, never spotted him looking or following them for miles to a seafront shack in the middle of nowhere. Doesn't seem that likely, does it? Jablonski lasts a day at most before being murdered. There is no satisfactory explanation for why he is killed. It's traditional to have, like in the Bond movies, a sacrificial lamb as a standard trope to further motivate the protagonist, but a bit of justification and context never goes amiss. Who lets their wife and 3-year-old kid fly as passengers in a rickety plane on a covert operation to transport $80 million worth of uncut diamonds from a dodgy Central American trouble spot? Wouldn't that be a bit risky? Tempting fate? Oh look, it was. Royale shoots Violent on the submersible, assumedly to stop him incriminating him. Then he confesses to killing Jablonski anyway, and obviously he's just killed Violent in front of, well, earshot of witnesses. If he survives, I think he may be going down the river a ways. I said previously that I liked it, and that's true. But why? The beer, for one thing. The experience was suitably enhanced by the illicit can of Colt 45. Then there's the car chase. It's up there with the best. The stunts were arranged by Kerry Loftin, a man who was known in movie circles as the best driver in the business. He also worked on Vanishing Point. It's a superb sequence, just comes at the wrong time and in the wrong place, thus compromises the content of the rest of the film. Barry Newman is fine as Talbot, very taciturn, good at conveying an impression of sensitivity and past trauma, hidden beneath a tough veneer of violent criminality, which hints at him being a good guy really. His previous movie, Vanishing Point, became something of a cult item. Essentially a road movie, one long car chase broken up by sporadic episodes of interaction with other peripheral characters. It's considered a sort of existential meditation on the Vietnam War and the elusive nature of freedom in the land of the free, or something. In that one he drove a supercharged Dodge Challenger RT 440 Magnum, just in case you were interested. Then he went on to be Petrocelli on TV. Susie Kendall, a cute British actress, is pretty and pouting as Sarah, but her role is painfully thin and primarily decorative. John Vernon does his usual villain by numbers act, and sporting a disturbing full head of black hair, Sir Ben Kingsley, for it is he, turns up in his first big screen role as the Hitman Royale. Nothing he does here gives any hint of the magnificent thespian ability he would later bring to roles in films such as Gandhi, Death and the Maiden, and Sexy Beast. In fact, he's really not all that good. Learning the ropes maybe? Miscast? Underwhelmed? Disillusioned so soon? Roy Budd delivers a workmanlike score that does the job, yet fails to really grab you. It falls far short of his career-defining Get Carter composition. Robert Carrington wrote the screenplay, as MacLaine himself was reportedly busy with other projects. Carrington's most notable previous writing credit was for the smart and tense Audrey Hepburn 60s thriller Wait Until Dark. Director here was Michael Tuckner, who did a very decent job on the Dick Burton gangland caper Villain the previous year. Plenty of decent talent involved. If you're a fan of early 70s action movies, Alistair MacLean stuff, or top-drawer car chases in films, you'll want to check it out. I would recommend, though, having a can or 6 of Colt 45 with you to complement the experience. Unfortunately, they don't make it in the UK anymore. It was originally brewed here under license by Courage Breweries, famous for their best bitter, Director's Ale, and 10% proof Imperial Russian Stout. So unless you can import some from the US, you're shit out of luck with that. Oh well, 10 extra, anyone? Thank you very much for your time and attention. If the mood takes you, please consider downing a lager for like, scotch for subscribe, or a Campari for comment. Campari? Really? Anyway, folks, I need all the help and alcohol I can get. In the meantime, here's a song called Fear Incorporated. Outside, the world is turning. You wanna move out, but can't get going. In the same place, old and abandoned. Looking on a movie that you'll never be a part of. Lockdown, the tape is running, but all you get is the sounds of silence. All of the output you're not receiving. Waiting for a narrative you'll never see the start of. Feel it if you want to be it. Winter approaches and darkness encroaches. One with the shadows alone in the night. With fear incorporated. You want to shake it, take it and break it. Deep in your heartbeat you know you can make it. Held in a trap of your fatal design. With fear incorporated. So inkling that making contact is not beyond you, but motivation is tissue paper, tearing and dissolving in a rain that never ceases, closed in and in a circle, so that the downpour can never touch you. For if the turmoil made a connection, what would keep your soul from breaking into pieces? Feel it if you want to be it. Winter approaches and darkness encroaches, one with the shadows alone in the night, with fear incorporated. You want to shake it, take it and break it. Deep in your heartbeat you know you can make it, held in a trap of your fatal design, with fear incorporated. Social anxiety eats me up voraciously. I'm not joining in anytime soon. To feel it if you want to be it. Winter approaches and darkness encroaches, one with the shadows alone in the night, with fear incorporated. You want to shake it, take it and break it. Deep in your heartbeat you know you can make it, held in a trap of your fatal design, with fear incorporated. Fear incorporated.